Obviously, we do have higher commission checks because our properties are more expensive, but there is a bit of a trade-off. What's up, guys? So to kick things off, like the title of the vlog says, I am a full-time commercial real estate agent. What that means is when I'm not beating people up, when I'm not going on vacations to Miami, and when I'm not making cooking vlogs, I sell multi-million-dollar trailer parks. No, really, I do. I'll explain in a minute. Just give me a second. Being a commercial real estate agent means that I sell investment properties, aka properties that produce income. In my case, it happens to be mobile home parks is what I specialize in. It's a certain asset class similar to multifamily, aka apartments, except it's a mobile home park and you own the land and you rent out the land to people who own mobile homes, or you own the mobile homes as well and you rent those out and manage them similar to multifamily. So in this video, I'm going to go over exactly what it is that I do, what type of qualifications you need to get this type of job, explain some of the differences between me and, say, a typical residential real estate agent, and go over some of the actual day-to-day tasks that I do. First, like I was saying with commercial real estate, what we do is that we sell real estate that produces income. There's many different types. There's multifamily, retail, industrial, of course, mobile home parks. Like I was saying, you typically have to specialize in one area to be successful. But for the most part, our job is to maximize value and ultimately get the highest price for our seller, assuming we're on the listing side, not leasing and all that. The only real requirement you need for this job is to have your real estate license, except that's not even 1% of what this job actually is. Actually, the real estate test, at least here in Florida, has almost nothing to do with commercial real estate. Doesn't require a college degree, but I did go to University of Central Florida. Didn't help me get hired though, but I did have a prior understanding of basic underwriting, how commercial real estate works, because I've been researching it for years. Shout out Grant Cardone, Ben Mala. So what makes us different than residential agents? Our property is valued solely on the income it produces or the potential of income for a property to produce. Meanwhile, residential is more valued on, is typically valued on comps and the desirability of the neighborhood. Just to show you a quick example, this is Roanoke Place. It's one of our listings for $5.8 million. If you just look at this entire packet, I mean, it mainly comes down to financial analysis breakdown. In this packet alone, we have 5 separate pages of an actual financial breakdown. So this is what like our typical listing looks like. Again, focuses on the actual income of the property. Meanwhile, a typical residential listing focuses a lot on how the property looks, how good it looks with pictures. I mean, commercial real estate does too, but it's not quite the same. So agents in my particular field, we need to be specialized in an actual asset, because while we're selling the property, we're really selling the business. So we need to actually understand the ins and outs of that business and how the income is produced. So we need to know how to accurately break out expenses to be able to show an accurate net income, and also be able to show ways that you can improve the income in a predictable way. Meanwhile, residential agents, they typically have to specialize in their area, such as an Orlando real estate agent knows the Orlando market and what things are desirable to the consumer. So the way we get paid is also a little bit different than the way residential is structured. We are both commission based. I get salary plus commission. It's a little bit whatever. Basically, the main differences is typically in a residential transaction, you usually agree upon either like a 5 or 6% commission to the brokers, except they split it in half between the buyer's and seller's agent most of the time. Unless it is only the one listing agent that both gets the buyer and the seller, then he gets to keep the whole thing, but that typically doesn't go that way. In commercial, typically we do keep the entire commissions because it's rare that there's a buyer's broker. Obviously, we do have higher commission checks because our properties are more expensive, but there is a bit of a trade-off. There's a lot more things that can go wrong in one of our transactions, and it usually takes a lot more people and a much longer transaction timeline. All right, and we are back. So, got home from work. It was a total disaster trying to do that while I was working. I'm gonna give you an actual day-to-day exact tasks that I do at work. First of all, everything obviously starts with lead generation. Clients don't just come for free, and contrary to popular belief, brokers do not just provide you clients, especially something specialized like mobile home parks. What we have to do, or what I prefer to do, is a combination of cold calling and property research. So basically I target an area. I have a special mapping system. We have our entire database that typically has a lot of park owners' information. If not, I will do the property research on, find out who the owners are, run it through one of the paid programs we have that find their phone number for us, and I will eventually cold call them. Some people like to do mail outs, that costs money. Some people like to do a bunch of different things. I prefer to just cold call. Way easier, way more efficient. Obviously, it's hard to get. Next. So after cold calling, hopefully I either get a client, or if I just get a hold of someone, I typically put them into some type of follow-up system I have, because it's not whether I could persuade them to sell now. That's not what I'm trying to do. No one's just going to magically be like, oh, I need to sell my multi-million-dollar mobile home park out of the blue. Typically, I need to do some type of follow-up, so that way I'm the first person at the top of their mind by the time they finally do decide to sell. Let's just assume got a client, they want to sell. This is where the skill of what we do actually comes in, and why you have to specialize as a commercial real estate agent. Mobile home park owner wants to sell. Let's just say it's a mom and pop, for example. There's someone who's had it their entire lives. They just run the park. That's the only thing they do. They probably don't keep the best bookkeeping and keep track of every single expense, or they commingle their expenses with other properties, maybe their house, maybe other rental properties they have, maybe other businesses. So what we have to do, they have to tell us their expenses, but we also have to pull it out and actually put into some type of property analysis. We know how to actually go in, look at their expenses, and know what fits and what makes sense for the amount of units they have, for the factors of the park. Maybe it's a septic sewer, maybe it's majority park owned homes, maybe they self-manage it so they don't pay themselves a salary. We need to still be able to put these expenses into the financial analysis for someone who's buying this property to actually invest their money in. They need to know exactly what it's going to cost them to run this property and how much they're actually going to make. That's a skill in its own, just understanding how to do the financial analysis. A common problem we see in unspecialized brokers who try and sell some level of commercial real estate. There'll be a park and they claim it's a 20% cap rate, or even let's just go with they claim it's a 10% cap rate, but when they arrive to that cap rate, they're doing it based off an income that has almost no expenses. So it is basically bullshit. And then that's not even the first problem. The other problem that people don't realize, especially commercial real estate sellers that don't want to use brokers, or people who don't realize the value that brokers bring, is if a property isn't underwritten right, a bank will not finance that property. One, a bank needs to verify all of the expenses. When they verify all those expenses, when they see that you presented to them a deal that's worth X amount of money, and then they look at the real expenses and they say, hold on, you told us this is how much money it's bringing in. We're looking at the actual expenses and it says your property is worth 30% less. Well, guess what? You're not going to be able to get financing. So let's say someone who wanted to sell their mobile home park sold their property with someone who doesn't specialize in actual mobile home parks. Even if they found a buyer who got it under contract, you won't be able to actually sell that property. All right, we have the listing, we underwritten it correctly. Now we have the market listing. It's not as simple as, I'm not gonna say residential real estate is you just throw it on the MLS, but a lot of the times that's typically all they really do until they actually have to get the deal closed. Then it actually does take a level of skill. So when we market our properties, first thing is, most commercial deals are done off market. The reason being is your average person does not have the qualifications to be buying a multi-million-dollar mobile home park, or a multi-million-dollar apartment building, or a multi-million-dollar retail center. So it makes no sense for us to put it on a public website that markets to a bunch of people that are just gonna waste your time. Now you might be saying, what if someone is qualified that would find it through a public website? The thing is, if someone is qualified, they probably already have, they should have connections with brokers or people in the industry, or have been reached out to people like me, cold calling them, because they are already qualified and own property. You don't need to have it marketed to you through a public forum. So typically deals aren't marketed on a public website. The way that we sell it is you have your database full of connections, or you have go-to buyers in the certain industry that you specialize in, which goes back to why it's really important that you specialize in an industry. Me and my broker's database, we keep compiling it between cold calling and lead generation. We know all of the park owners in a certain area. And then if we don't, they're the first people that we're calling as soon as we get something for sale and we get a listing. Also, we know every single large investment group or syndication group that buys and sells mobile home parks that has the ability to actually close on the deal. So right when we get a listing, they're the first people we call. Typically someone on our team has some type of personal relationship with some type of big seller, big buyer in the whatever region of the US that we're looking at. That's also why if you follow Grant Cardone or Ben Muller, they always say you got to get a relationship with the brokers, because we are the ones that actually get the deals and sell the deals. If we don't know who you are and you don't have a relationship with us, and we don't think you're qualified to actually close the deal, we probably are not even going to recognize your offer. Not in the sense we won't recognize it, but once we present it, we're going to advise our seller, hey, we don't think this person has the ability to close the deal. So you need to actually develop a relationship with brokers. But that is actually the skill that we bring to it. If you were to go and try sell your mobile home park on your own, not saying you couldn't, but you probably do not have the connections that we do, considering that we spend all of our time every single day, day in, day out, connecting with these people. Next thing that we do is we advise them through negotiations depending on offers that we get. Now, once the property is under contract, we now go into facilitation mode, so to speak, where we actually facilitate a transaction, and that in itself is a special skill on its own. So we have to keep both sides to a certain timeline. So the contract usually has some agreement on, let's say, 30 days due diligence, 30 days close. That means they have 30 days to get all the due diligence documents in place after the PSA is signed, the purchase and sale agreement. And then after that, they have 30 days to get the loan done so that they can actually close on the property. We have to actually move that process along. So we act as the people in between the buyer and seller to make sure that, one, the buyer is asking for realistic due diligence documents, aka making sure that everything we claimed in the listing is verifiable. And it's our job to take that back to the seller and walk them through actually pulling out what they asked for due diligence from their expenses, from their get inspections done. We have to be the people that basically make everything happen. Let's just say someone buys a park in Ohio. The seller has a lawyer that drafts up the purchase and sale agreement and sends it to the buyer. The buyer needs to get a lawyer that knows Ohio law to review that purchase and sale agreement. He doesn't know any lawyers in Ohio. Well, guess who's the ones who has the connections or the knowledge to find out who the lawyer is? And then if I don't know, my broker does. And if my broker doesn't know, it's our job to find out to make this transaction happen. This is why we get paid. After that, finally, the deal closes, and that's where we get paid. So basically, that's what I do for work. There's a lot that goes into selling commercial property. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. That's a summary of what I do as a day job. I plan on doing a lot of videos in my industry and give you guys kind of like an inside personal vlog look into what it is that I do, because I notice on YouTube there isn't really anyone who's fun in commercial real estate. Like in residential, yeah, there's Ryan Serhant's vlog, which is killing it. I guess the only commercial guys you got is Grant Cardone and Ben Mala. But yeah, so I'm gonna be doing a lot of videos, kind of breaking things down, giving you guys like an inside look. I'll do some like live cold calling videos, tips and tricks and stuff, just fun stuff. Anyways, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me in the YouTube algorithm. If you like this type of content, make sure to leave a comment below and I will do more of it. Peace.